But I thank God for this church, Pentecostal Lighthouse Church, a fine church. If you have your Bible, however, I invite your attention to John chapter 1. John chapter 1. You might want to stand for this one. John chapter 1. I'm going to read to you verses 1, 2, 3, 10, and 14. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. Now listen to this language here. Watch this. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Our subject this morning, God is something else. Come on, clap your hands for Jesus. God is something else. I'm not trying to add anything to what God told me to preach. But I just want to slip something in there because God told me to say that. God is something else. But if I could add a little something, God is something else. You got that, didn't you? Because he didn't tell me to come here with that slang. God is something else. Just let me add some. God's something else. The gospel, according to John, in this present first chapter, begins with a very majestic prologue. It begins with God coming to the earth as the Messiah, as the Christ. God comes to the earth as the anointed Messiah. When he arrives, like all humans that arrive, he is given a name. The angel says, go ahead and call him Jesus. He's going to save his people from their sin. So the Gospel of John shows us Jesus coming to the earth cosmically and historically. Now, the only other person that came down was the devil, but he got kicked out and he became a cosmic flop. So John starts with the coming of Jesus cosmically. He was in the heavens, and then he came down. And then this gospel continues with the inauguration, if I can use that word, of John the Baptist and his sermons introducing this Jesus. But John deals with Jesus then historically. The Gospel of John then ends with Jesus gathering his staff. It's the first thing he did when he came. He got him a staff together. Gathered his first disciples, and then John gives us a description of the birth of the church. Now, I don't know about you, but I get a distinct, holy, reverential feeling. That's why I told you you might have to stand up for this one, because this book, this is an awesome text. You understand what I'm saying. And I get a very distinct, insurmountable feeling when I read John chapter 1, verse 1. This gospel is really the beginning of the greatest story ever told. You're not going to find a story greater than this. Nobody's going to tell you anything that's going to be greater than this. There's some stuff that's going to tickle you a little bit. It'll make you shout and you'll fall all over the floor. But when you get up, this is the quintessential message in the book. It is an introduction to history's greatest fact. God was manifest in the flesh. It is actually a foreword to the last word. If you want to know who God is, read the book of John. Any discrepancy about who Jesus is, read John. You're a minister and you preaching all this other stuff and never get to preach Jesus, read John. This is a foreword to the last word. Because people need to know who God is. I said people need to know who God is. Folks, some sitting right in the church don't know who God is. People have always been asking, who is this Jesus? Who is this Jesus? And they let God just roll off their lips. But when it comes to Jesus, everybody don't know who Jesus is. In the 50s, this prosperity gospel got started. And it kept moving and moving. And in the 80s, you saw preachers preaching on TV and fighting each other. People were trying to find out who God is, preacher, but the ministers are teaching health, wealth, and prosperity gospel. That's not God. If you don't like that, it ain't God. People want to know who God is, and preachers were on television fighting one another. That's not God. God's something else. He ain't that. That ain't him. In the 90s, the prosperity gospel even crept into the apostolic church. That's why I got to watch my back in here. I don't know. Preaching heresy, extra biblical concepts, supposing that gain is godliness. If gain is godliness, then the Catholic Church is more holy than all of us. And you know that ain't correct. Now, godliness with contentment is great gain. But it does not follow that just because you got something